we change a to be a number other than 1. All right? And that's in a situation where there isn't a greatest common factor either. And there's many different ways to do this method. Now, whenever Mrs. Elliott works with her specific students, she uses a way called the box method, or X box. And I'm going to show you that way. But I'm also going to show you a method called the airplane method. Now, there's probably 6 or 8 different methods that somebody could use to factor these. And if you searched online, you would find a bunch of them. Okay? There's the airplane method. There's the Xbox method. There's a method where they factor by grouping. And I actually, last semester, I showed that method to some students also. And if you are really good at factoring by grouping, then that's a really easy way to do it. And if anybody ever wanted to see that, then I could show them. But it's actually still, they're all about the same. They all use similar methods to get there. Okay? And so when you're doing them, it doesn't really matter which way you do it. You just have to pick a way and use it. Now, the one thing is about all of them is that if you have a greatest common factor, the first thing you've got to do is get that out. Because if you don't, then they won't work right. Okay? All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what's called the airplane method. And so I do have some written instructions to go with this, so let me bring them over here. Oops. All right, so here's an example of the method called the airplane method. All right, and here's the steps for doing this. So they have 6x squared minus 5x minus 6. That's the quadratic function that we're going to factor. Right? And their airplane is the fact that they've got this little, they call this the airplane. Okay? And what it means is that we're going to, first of all, we're going to multiply a and c together. So if you remember, this is always written in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. So the first step to this is multiplying a and c together. Okay? And after we multiply a and c together, we want to find the factors of a times c that add up to b. So that part right there is the same as what we did yesterday. So the first thing we got to do is do the multiplication, but then we're just doing what we did yesterday. Okay? From there, it changes just a little bit. Right? So let me just kind of walk you through this example and as we talk about this, and I'll give you a moment to write it down too. And this will be on Schoology, so if you don't get all of it, don't worry, you can always go look at it later. So we multiply 6 times negative 6, get negative 36. And then we want the factors of negative 36 that give me b, negative 5. That's where the finish the airplane is. Okay. All right. Which those are negative 9 and 4. Now the difference to this compared to what we did yesterday is that the first term for both of our parentheses, we're going to use a and x in both spots. Okay? We're going to put a and x in both spots. So in this case, a is 6. So we put 6x here, 6x there. Okay? So I wrote it down here that we're going to put ax in the first spot in both parentheses. And then I put the negative 9 and the plus 4. It doesn't matter where those two go. Okay? Then the next thing is that we factor the greatest common factor, or excuse me, not factor, divide by the greatest common factor in each parenthesis. So in this parenthesis here, 6x minus 9, these are both divisible by 3, so we divide them by 3. These two are both divisible by 2, so we divide them by 2, and there's my answer. Okay. So we multiply a and c, factors of a and c that add up to b, put them in the parentheses with ax as the first term, and then just divide by the greatest common factor. All right, so we're going to do that with 6x squared plus 11x plus 4. And, one of the things we talked about with our phones and like that one thing I am not opposed to is with your phone, is if you see something up there that you would rather write down later, even though you can access it online, that if you want to say, hey, Mr. Coffee, can I take a picture of that? I'm fine with that. Okay? So if you're like, oh, man, let me take a photo of that for later, then, okay? If you need to, then that's good. All right, so we start. We multiply 6 times 4. So we get 24. And then we want the factors of 24 that add up to 11. So let's see, factors of 24. So we've got 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. Okay, there's our factors of 24. So we just need to pick which one, when I add them together, I get 11. Okay, and in this case that is 8 and 3. Okay. So I'm going to put my parentheses. The first spot in the parentheses is going to be 6x, all right, because a times x in both first ones. And then the other parts I'm going to do just like we did yesterday. Since 3 and 8 give me 11, then I'm going to put plus 3 plus 8 there. Okay. And then we look for a greatest common factor. So what do 6 and 3 have in common? 3. Okay, so I'm going to divide those both by 3. Okay. And 6 and 8 have 2 in common. So I'm going to divide those both by 2. So 6 divided by 3 is 2x plus 1 and 3x plus 4. And that's my answer. And I actually prefer this method over the Xbox. That's why I'm showing it to you first. Just because I think that for some of you, after you do a couple of these, it gets really easy for you. Okay, you can do them real quickly. Where with the Xbox, there's a lot more drawing to it. Okay. All right, so let's look at one more. 4x squared minus 15x minus 4. We're going to do this one with this airplane method also. All right, so first thing we do, all right, multiply a times c. 4 times negative 4 is negative 16. Okay. And so then we want the factors of negative 16 that give me negative 15. So let's just put down the factors of 16 first of all. Okay, so 1 and 16, 2 and 8, 4 and 4. Okay. So which pair, when I subtract, will I get 15? Okay, 1 and 16, okay? Except in this case, since the 15 is negative, that means in this case the 16 is going to be negative and the 1 is going to be positive. So I put my parentheses here. Okay. The value of a is 4, so I'm going to put 4x first. Okay. And then the plus 1 and the minus 16. Now, the actual preferred method for any of these is if you are capable of just doing them in your head and figuring them out, the combinations, then that would be the best way to do it. But if you can't, then you have a couple methods that help you get to there. Okay? 4x plus 1, do they have a greatest common factor? Okay, well they do, but it's just 1, so I can't change that one. 4x and 16, I can divide both of those by 4. So we get 4x plus 1 and x minus 4. And there's my answer. So how many think you could do that? Okay, awesome. Letter C here. Go ahead and do it with letter C. All right, so the answers for this one then are 3x minus 4 and x minus 4, right? Okay, how many people got that? All right, hopefully most of us did. Hopefully all of us did. Okay, all right, now, so that is the airplane method, okay? The other method is called the Xbox method. And in reality, the Xbox method is very similar to the airplane method. And so if you like the airplane method and you're like, man, I don't want to learn another way, okay, then you are more than welcome to basically close your ears and you could work on that if you wanted to. Some people are going to want to see a second way. My suggestion is always, if you have an option, take a look at both of them, weigh the options, all right, and then take the best one. You know, it's kind of like someday you're going to buy a car, all right, and you'll have different cars you'll look at before you buy one, say, okay, this one's better than this one this way, and so you need to think about those things. Now, both of these are on Schoology, okay? It says factoring ax squared plus bx plus c. All right, it's a document there. So you have it accessible to you. All right, so this is how this one works, and we're going to use that same problem to do this one. All right. First, there's this x right here in the middle. Right? At the top of that x, they have a times c. We did that. That was our airplane frame. Okay, connected. The bottom of this x is b. Okay. All right, so we address them. So I'm still looking for the factors of a times c that add up to b. Right? When I find those numbers, they're going to go left and right here. Okay, I have the instructions written down too. Okay, they're going to go here. Right? So the first part of this is the same as using the airplane method. Right? So we'll do that part to start with. All right, so when you did this multiplication, you got 48 here. That's my a times c that goes in the top of the x. And in the bottom of the x is negative 16, the value of b. All right, so when you found the factors of 48 that add up to negative 16, what were they? Jacob, what were they? Okay, 4 and 12, right? Okay, so negative 4 and negative 12. Right? So this is basically the same as with the airplane method. Okay, now here's where it changes just a little bit. All right, now we're going to draw a box. A little 4x4 table. Okay, the first term of our ax squared plus bx plus c goes here in the upper left. So 3x squared is going to go there. Okay. The last term, 16, is going to go in the bottom right. All right, so first and last term go there. Right? And then the negative 4 and the negative 12 are going to go in the other two spots with an x. Now all we do is greatest common factor. Okay. So we did the 48, got negative 16. Here's our b. Factors of 48 to add up to that. All right. Put them here. All right. Now we just do the greatest common factor. 3x squared, negative 12x. The greatest common factor there is 3x. Then we do the greatest common factor for this row. 4 and 16, they have a greatest common factor of 4. Okay. Now, whenever this is negative and this is positive, it's always going to be negative. Okay. All right. Then we do the columns. Okay. 3x squared, negative 4x. They have an x in common. And negative 12 and 16, they also have negative 4 in common. So there's my 3x minus 4 and my x minus 4. Right. So both methods are pretty easy. Okay. It just depends on, this one you end up doing more drawing. Okay, that one you just have to do a little bit of dividing. So whichever one you like the best, take it and use it. Okay. And like I said, I put it there on Schoology and with instructions. Oops. So if you want to have the instructions for later that you can write down, I have both of these things with all their instructions are both on Schoology. You can access them. Okay? All good?